Well, a warm welcome to this talk. Now, fact-checking seems to be quite popular these days with certain aspects of mainstream media who've set them up themselves as the arbiters of truth. So I wanted to fact-check three things myself today, and they do kind of hang together and tell give an interesting position, really. Is it true that Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, said we will continue to be your single source of truth? Is that true? That she was the single source of truth? Yeah, she did say that. And then there's a famous professor in the UK, Richard Dawkins, evolutionary biologist and expert in the public understanding of science. And he seems to be saying that the government, there was a lot of things that weren't known, things that they simply didn't know. How true is that? How ignorant were the British authorities in the early parts of the pandemic, especially? And the third one is Matt Hancock. Is it actually true that Matt Hancock stood up in the British Parliament and referred to a clinical trial, which I can't find and don't know what he was referring to? No one's saying he's being disingenuous about the existence of this trial, of course, but I don't know what trial he's referring to. Did he say that vitamin D was completely ineffective, that it didn't work? So let's look at those three now and look at how they connect together. Let's listen to Jacinda Ardern first of all.
I've been watching for some days, and this is not unique to New Zealand, that in the midst of what is a global issue, as you would expect, there are a number of rumours that circulate. I am present on social media, I see it myself. I cannot go around and individually dismiss every single rumour I see on social media, as tempted as I might be. So instead I want to send a clear message to the New Zealand public. We will share with you the most up-to-date information daily. You can trust us as a source of that information. You can also trust the Director General of Health and the Ministry of Health. For that information, do feel free to visit at any time to clarify any rumour you may hear, covid19.govt.nz. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide.
Well, there we have it. Pretty convincing, really, from Jacinda Ardern herself. Now, to be fair, that was in the early part of the pandemic, but this is the approach that governments were taking at the time, and this was the real concern. It wasn't very good audio quality, so let's just clarify. I want to send a clear message to the New Zealand public. We will share with you the most up-to-date information daily. You can trust us as the source of that information. You can also trust the Director General of Health and the Minister of Health. And you can check on their website for information. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. Anything else. So basically, representing the New Zealand government here, she's saying, counter-narratives, dismiss it. Don't think about it. Don't analyse it. Don't think about its merits. Don't see how it compares with other pieces of information. Don't see if it's consistent with fundamental underlying science. Don't see if there's any empirical truth in it. No. Just dismiss it. Why? Why will we just dismiss it? We will continue to be your single source of truth. It really looks quite comical now, but that's what she said. So I'm afraid that one is true. She did say we will continue to be your single source of truth. Now, the point is there was a lot of unknowns at that time. Let's listen to Professor Dawkins now and get some flavour of that as he thinks through this issue.
Normally there's much more time in order to examine all the evidence and give balanced, wise advice. When you're required to give advice almost instantly, there inevitably are going to be mistakes.
I'm so surprised that you're not more critical of that era. As someone who champions robust debate, champions learning from errors, admitting when things weren't exactly what you thought they were, it feels like it was a real classic example of just the politicization we're talking about, where authorities were way over the top.
Okay, well, probably then what they should have done, and with hindsight they should have done, said, well, actually, we don't know. We're uncertain. Our best advice we can give is so-and-so. But imagine what would have happened if they'd said that. Scientists don't know, right? You know, it's a very difficult situation to be in. Luckily for me, I wasn't in that situation. But I sympathize with people who are expected to give unequivocal yes-no sort of advice. Politicians will say, give us the facts. Is it a yes or a no? And you're expected to answer that. And where, if the true answer is we don't know, then that gives rise to yet more uncertainty and confusion. And so I sympathize with people if they're required to give a yes-no answer when they actually don't have the information at hand.
Well, I thought that was really quite interesting, the views of Professor Dawkins there. And he seemed to think that there was a lot of things the government didn't know, that there was uncertainty. What to do when scientists don't know? It was a difficult situation. What would have happened if the government hadn't been decisive? Well, I would have thought the best thing to do in that situation was for the government to be truthful, say, look, we don't know. This is the evidence for a particular course of action. This is the evidence against a particular course of action. You're all adults. Go and decide for yourself based on this information, rather than telling us one side of the story with their particular narrative and just not allowing us to think freely for ourselves, pushing a particular narrative. And they go on there to talk about the whole demoralisation of the public and lack of trust in science, which is a real pity. I mean, science is one of the ways that we find truth, and for the people not to believe in that, it is really sad because of this approach of the government and government scientists saying they had certainty when they didn't. If they didn't know, say you don't know. If I don't know, I'll just say I don't know. Why didn't they say that? Why weren't they honest with us? It's infuriating, and I just feel so let down, as I know many of you do. Right, the final one is His Excellency Matt Hancock. Let's listen I meant the Right Honourable Matt Hancock. See what he has to say.
Vitamin D is one of the many things that we've looked into to see whether it reduces the incidence or the impact of coronavirus, and I've seen reports that it does. So we therefore put it into a trial, and unfortunately the results were that it doesn't appear to have any impact. So that is the latest clinical advice, which of course is always kept under review.
So that was the words of the Right Honourable Gentleman himself, looking at vitamin D. He'd read a report showing there was possible efficacy, including research data from Spain and other places. But they put it into a trial. I don't know what trial he's talking about. I've tried to find it. I don't know of any government trial at that time. I really don't know what he was meaning. If you know the reference to that trial, do let me know. And then that would obviously enhance Mr. Hancock's credibility if we had the reference for that trial. But he said the vitamin D had no impact at all. So did he say it didn't work? Well, I think probably essentially, yeah, I think probably he did say that. No impact at all. Now, slightly after that, the government did actually recommend vitamin D, current advice on vitamin D. In the UK, during autumn and winter, everyone is advised to take a supplement containing 10 micrograms, that's 400 international units of vitamin D a day, to support general health, and in particular bone and muscle health. This is because we cannot make vitamin D from sunshine at this time of year. So the government kind of did say something about that and did start giving it to vulnerable people, at least for a period of time. But of course, that dose was really remarkably small. I mean, the government there was talking about giving 400 international units a day. If you go out on a sunny day with your shirt off and some shorts on, you'll probably make 20,000 units without too much difficulty in summer, even in an English summer. So there we go. Quite interesting. We seem to have this narrative from the New Zealand government. Now, I'm not picking on Jacinda Ardern because we could have looked at examples from British prime ministers, American presidents, American senior politicians, or all sorts of people we could have looked at. I'm not picking on her. But this idea there was a single narrative, when in actual fact, according to the thinking of Richard Dawkins, I hope I'm not misrepresenting Professor Dawkins, but my thinking is consistent with the idea that there were some things they simply didn't know. Why weren't they honest about the things they didn't know? And what the heck was this trial that Matt Hancock was talking about? I don't know. It's a complete mystery. In my view, was he wrong about optimising vitamin D levels throughout the country? Yeah. In my view, he was wrong about not optimising vitamin D levels throughout the country. So I thought that was quite interesting. In terms of fact checkers generally, of course, all a fact check is another opinion. That's all it is. So when you go to these fact-checking websites, basically it's just another opinion. This is what you teach students to do in academic writing. What's the argument for? What's the argument against? So the thesis and the antithesis. So when someone fact-checks, unless they're actually showing, I think mine were fairly convincing there because I was actually showing the videos. I know they can be constructed by artificial intelligence these days, but I'm convinced they were all genuine, and I've given you the references for those. Why is there not an ongoing debate, a completely free, transparent debate? And when politicians don't know, for goodness sake, say so. So that's my appeal on this video, and I think we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching.